To you, Michael, because I think the more relevant point here is whether or not she was well represented the first time around when she made that deal to be silent about her alleged affair with Donald Trump. There's now a new lawsuit that has been filed that you guys are filing against the former attorney, Keith Davidson, who made that deal, who your side is saying was elected to be a puppet for Michael Cohen and Donald Trump in order to advance their interests at the expense of Stephanie Clifford, which is Stormy Daniels' real name. They've now countersued for defamation. Keith Davidson has sued you, and Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen. Your thoughts?
Well, Keith Davidson is an absolute scumbag, and he's a disgrace to the profession of law. And I think when this case is all said and done, he's going to be disbarred, and rightfully so. You know, we still don't have all of his documents and the text messages between him and Michael Cohen. It's clear to us they were conspiring in March and April of this year against my client, which, as Lisa will tell you, an attorney, even a discharged attorney, should never be working against that attorney's former client. But I want to go back to what we were talking about moments ago, because I think this is a very important point, Joy. You know, when Donald Trump was trying to get in the pants of my client, he didn't tell my client that he disrespected her or that she wasn't credible or she wasn't intelligent. You know, when Mr. Trump was trying to get in the pants of Miss McDougal, he didn't tell her that he disrespected her, that she wasn't intelligent, that she wasn't entitled to credibility. The hypocrisy here is unbelievable. And let me tell you what I'd like to know this morning. I'd like to know the last time Mr. Giuliani viewed pornography. Something tells me it wasn't years or decades ago. So if there's anyone in the United States that could help me answer that question, please provide that information to me, because I'd like to make it known.
Yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, a lot of mansplaining going on. Summer Zervos is going to, and stick with you for a second, Michael, have the opportunity to depose Donald Trump, and she was the former Apprentice contestant who said that Donald Trump kissed and groped her after she appeared on her show, and kissed and groped her, obviously, against her will. She will get that deposition. Do you believe that with this new lawsuit, you know, alleging that, you know, Donald Trump, that the deal made with Donald Trump was made with the lawyer's collusion, does that afford an additional opportunity for you to get to depose Donald Trump?
I think it does, in light of the allegations in our complaint and in light of the allegations relating to what Mr. Trump knew earlier this year and what he knew about the effort to silence my client. One way or the other, Joy, I'm going to get a chance to depose this president and ask the tough questions, and I'm going to actually demand and get answers.
Lisa, let me ask you about that, because you have now Keith Davidson, who is involved in multiple instances of doing these NDAs. They seem to be cookie-cutter NDAs for these women. They don't seem quite favorable to the women. How strong is the case that he was colluding, essentially, with Michael Cohen?
Well, I don't know all of the evidence. I don't know what the text messages are. I have seen what's been made public, which is itself. I don't know whether, for example, this cookie cutter agreement, did that come from Cohen? Did that come from Keith Davidson? I mean, these do tend to be templates. In this case, it's very unusual with the PP and the DD, right? David Dennison and Peggy Peterson, and that is unusual. So, you know, I just don't know enough. We don't have enough evidence yet for me to make that determination.
Yeah, but from a standpoint of you know, legal ethics,
yes.
if a client comes to an attorney and multiple clients come to this attorney and the same result keeps happening, meaning that the woman has to be quiet,
yes.
She gets a certain amount of money.
Well, I'll tell you something. Until about 6 months ago, almost all of these things ended with NDAs and women being silenced and being paid an amount of money. And I've done a lot of work in the last few months to get deals without NDAs. And I've had to push very hard, and I've gotten some of them. But merely that there's an NDA, I don't think is sufficient. Now, if he is colluding, if there's text messages to show that, especially after he got out of the case, and if he hasn't turned over the file, as Michael Avenatti says, that's clearly an ethical violation. We have an obligation to do that.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to be looking for, I'm assuming, Michael, is that, you know, evidence of communication between Michael Cohen and Mr. Davidson.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, after Mr. Davidson no longer represented my client, he should not have been having any communications with Michael Cohen about my client, and yet we know that he has, and we've been demanding these text messages for months, repeatedly, 4, 5, 6 times, and they refuse to provide the text messages because they know they are very, very damaging, and we're going to get our hands on them sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and so, Jill, you know, what's sort of fascinating here is the way in which the Stormy Daniels case has kind of dovetailed or sort of run into the Robert Mueller case. How is that? I mean, how does this case ultimately reflect on the bigger Russiagate case?
Well, I think it's all part of the kind of people that Donald Trump surrounds himself with. You have Cohen at the center of this, who is his and not an ethical great lawyer, who is the one who supposedly wrote these NDAs, which all included things about paternity. Well, Michael Avenatti has denied that there's any paternity issue involved in Stormy Daniels. Why is it in there?
Yeah.
Because he was too lazy to take it out. And her lawyer, Keith Davidson, didn't even think to take it out.
Right.
So there's a lot of bad things based on, he has Giuliani now as his lawyer. This is not doing him any good in any respect. And his attack on Stormy, his praise of Melania, who says, I never talked to him about this. Why is he speaking for me?
Right.
So this is not helping Donald Trump at all.
Yeah, and you do have also this sense, Lisa, in which, you know, everyone, we talked early in the last hour about how sort of everyone is implicated. The entire Republican Party is recruited into the way that Donald Trump speaks, the way that he, you know, his policy ideas, even if they don't agree with them, everyone's recruited. You now have people sort of using Donald Trump's tactic of pushing back against these women. There's a piece of sound here from October of 2016. There was a People magazine writer named Natasha Stoyanov who alleged Trump pushed her against the wall, tried to force his tongue down her mouth, down her throat, and physically attacked her during a tour at Mar-a-Lago in 2005. This is how Trump reacted.
She said I made inappropriate advances. And by the way, the area was a public area, people all over the place. Take a look. You take a look. Look at her words. You tell me what you think. I don't think so. I don't think so.
And, you know, take a look at her.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It's so offensive that all that matters about a woman is what she looks like, that you have to reach a certain level of attractiveness for Trump to sexually harass or grope you. I mean, it's so offensive. But that's the mindset of these guys. That's how we get judged. Our appearance, that's all that matters. And by the way, Stormy Daniels is a career woman. Stormy Daniels is fully in control of her career, her acting, her producing. Who is more in control of her professional life than Stormy Daniels?
Yeah, indeed, and very smart. I mean, if you listen to her great communication skills, because she's out there battling trolls and everything on Twitter as well.
The 18 women who also accused him, there are many professional women.
Absolutely.
Yes,
yeah.
4 of whom I represented, and they are still standing strong.
And one of whom just won elected office, or she at least won her primary. Michael, last question to you. Where is this going from here? This battle's back and forth, obviously, with Ms. Daniels' former attorney. That's happening. You still have these active cases involving Michael Cohen. Give us a preview. Where does this go from here?
Well, Joy, we're going to continue to march forward, and we're going to acquire the evidence and the facts and the documents to show exactly what happened here, and we're going to disclose that to the American people so they can make their own judgment as to what happened. And you know, this isn't about the sex; it's about the cover-up that took place at the hands of Mr. Trump and Mr. Cohen. And look, I want to go back to something because I think this is really important. Mr. Trump hired Mr. Cohen and used him for over a decade as his personal attorney. If that doesn't reflect a tremendous lack of judgment, I don't know what does. Mr. Trump then turned around and hired most recently Mr. Giuliani to represent him and has now doubled down on his comments. If that doesn't reflect an absolute lack of judgment, I don't know what does. I mean, this president has no judgment when it comes to picking people. He promised the best and the brightest, and we got these two guys.